Hello, adventurers, and welcome very much to this here Adventure Hour with Isobelle Carmody. Thank you so much for joining us, Isobelle.
Thank you for inviting me.
I am very excited about the adventure today, which brings me to what it will be. So today we will be going on the Choose Your Adventure, The Omicron, and this is the description. Can you hear me? Good. You are in great danger. No, you don't get to read the fine print. That's not how quests work. A hero always commits to the path before understanding it. You are one of the chosen, quested to collect Omicron to stop the invasion of our world. Will your choices make you the chosen one? Or will Brisbane and the world fall to the affected? This adventure starts in Post Office Lane opposite the Post Office Square in Brisbane. This is where we will be armchair traveling today. And this particular adventure was made by the absolutely delightful Isobelle. I am excited to chat a little bit more about what you've been up to, Isobelle, but for the moment, we're going to drive straight into the adventure. And because Isobelle was the original voiceover narrator for this particular piece, I am going to invite you to narrate the first location, Isobelle.
So I'm going to, okay. Well, I thought sort of a disembodied voice would speak it. Okay, I'm pulling it up. Put on my screen the book I've been working on, so I just have to get that out of the way.
I'm very much excited about chatting about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here we are. I just have to get to the beginning. Naturally, I thought I was prepared. That is the story of my life. I always think I'm prepared. Okay, so who begins? Okay. Nexus 1, Post Office Lane. You can hear me, can't you? Okay, you need to calm down. Take a picture using your camera application of that interesting circular shape on the wall outside the arcade, or you can sketch if you've got a pen and paper. Act natural. Having someone call the police because you are acting strangely would be a disaster. Imagine trying to tell them you're hearing a voice no one else can hear. You'll end up in a padded room. You think I'm overreacting. See the man sitting on the steps selling the big issue? You caught him in your photograph. He's tolerant of weirdos, but the woman with the expensive suit walking past that wall sculpture in the park on the left, taking out a new iPhone, not so much. You can bet she'd call the police. No, I'm not God. Well, actually, you can think of me as a small god, diminutive but powerful, yet modest. The program on this device you're holding is the means by which I'm communicating with you. In fact, you're not actually hearing me at all. I'm utilizing electromagnetic pulses and accessing your memory of speech very selectively. But we won't get into electromagnetic dimensional geometrics. The main thing is that your device is all powered up. This is the one time when running out of battery really could kill you. I'm not trying to frighten you, but I am your guide on your quest. And I have to tell you, a little anxiety would not go amiss. Actual fear will become unavoidable later, but we can't have you incapacitated with terror at Nexus 1. I'll explain the whys and wherefores of nexuses and other vital information deeper into this quest. Suffice it to say that now you're in Nexus 1. The first thing to do is to make sure you don't lose this device. It's important because it will enable me to keep track of you. And it'll also be handy when you need to find your way from one nexus to another, as there's a map function. I'm afraid walking away is not an option. By hearing and responding to me and by capturing your first Omicron, you have entered into a formal and binding contract. From here on, your choices are limited by the parameters of the quest. No, you didn't get to read the fine print. That's not how quests work. A hero always commits to the path before understanding it. No, you can't just strike out in any old direction. Haven't you heard all those fairy tales about the dangers of leaving the path? No, the big bad wolf would not get you. The dangers you face on this quest are more terrifying than any fairy tale monster. No, I didn't say the paths of the quest were safe, but there are diverging paths at every nexus, and you get to choose between them because choosing is what a chosen one does. There are no correct paths. There are paths and choices. And if you choose the right paths, your choices could save you and your world. No, you're definitely a chosen one. Otherwise, I couldn't have spoken to you. More about Omicrons later. For now, a couple of things to remember. You can hear me on the paths of this quest so long as you have your device, but you'll hear me best within a nexus. So move between them as fast as possible. And remember that on this quest, although you are a chosen one, your choices define you and ultimately dictate whether you are the chosen one. And whether or not you believe I'm a figment of your imagination, you need to get moving. Why? Well, for one, all nexuses leak energy when inhabited by a chosen one. And that energy is like sending up a flare that shows your location. Now, enough chat. Time to get moving. You're in Queen Street. From this location, you have 2 nexus possibilities. Do you want to read those ones, Emily?
Yes, exactly.
I can have a break from my voice.
Do it. You could simply cross the Post Office Square Park and the next road to Anzac Park. The nexus there will be stable, giving you time to find an Omicron. Note the 2 palm trees and the 2 lights bracketing the clock tower in front of you. Doubles are good juju. The second possibility? Well, that's a more complex move because it will take you longer to get there. Timing matters because the moment you choose, the nexus begins to form, and a nexus only stays stable for a limited period. Move? Oh, that's a chess reference. No, it doesn't surprise me that you don't know much about the game. No, that was not a sneer. You're very touchy. But I'm going to put that down to you being out of your depth. Okay, to get to the second location, aside from moving quickly, you'll need to cut back through the arcade you came through behind you. Now, that's risky because the deja vu factor gives off a psychic flare that you would not believe. But if you move fast and don't look at anything that you looked at the first time, you should be okay. Try walking differently too. I don't know. I'm not good at the physical stuff. Why choose the harder option? Well, the Omicron at St. Stephen's Church is stronger. That may be important if the other nexuses you choose have weaker Omicrons. Of course, I talk about them as if they're alive. You think things that breathe and bleed are the only things that live. You organics are so full of yourself. No, I'm not mad, and of course I'm going with you either way. I have no choice. Think of me as your grown-up imaginary friend, all right? Or psychotic manifestation, whatever works for you. A smarter, imaginary adult friend who has your best interests at heart, maybe, and who you should listen to or die. Now choose and act. So, Isobelle, do we go for the closer yet weaker nexus, which will be more stable because we can get there quicker? Or do we take the kind of the further one, the St. Stephen's Church, but it's stronger?
Well, I think since I know where this is going, you should be the one who chooses.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm always for a good, quick option, you know, like even though it might be weaker, if you stack them all up together, like you can still end up with a strong kind of like getting out there. Also, I am not the best at running. Like if we were to take me physically and move through Brisbane, and like I had to like go to Saints like to further away and I had to, there was like running involved, I don't think I would do well. But in saying that, I have a perfect way to avoid deja vu, which is just taking my glasses off, right? Because I can see enough that I can get through the alleyway, but then I won't be able to see anything because I've taken my glasses off. Actually, you know what? That is a superpower in this case. So I'm actually
absolutely. Very good
solution. Go for the stronger one, right? Because even though I can't run fast, I can avoid deja vu, which I think is like, you know, it's probably going to help me in this case.
And frankly, and this will bring us to this one's going to bring us to Anzac Square, right?
Yes. No, okay. This one, so Anzac Square is the one that's closer. This is St. Stephen's Church.
So you're choosing
to go further because I have the superpower of not embarking the deja vu because I could take my glasses off.
Okie doke. So you chose a tricky course as it transpires, because what I realized when I was setting this game up at some point was that there are 2 St. Stephens. So
Oh.
what's I see we've got some visuals here. What are we looking at? Is that
We
that's
do. So this is the artwork from the story. Now, if we have a look at the street view of where we are at Post Office Lane, that's
Yep.
actually the Laurel here.
Oh, clever girl.
Yeah, see, because all of the nexuses, and so we're meant to be collecting nexuses. They're meant to be
No,
circles.
Omicrons.
Oh, sorry, yes. We're at
Yeah.
the nexus.
They're the circles, and you're
Yeah.
right. You got the one that that is the one.
Right. So that's like obviously, so because there's also like circles up here.
Yeah. And they've got to choose. They've got to figure it out themselves. So
yeah, and so like we've got little walking man signs.
Yeah,
So
very
lots of
clever.
like options
Yeah.
for circular. Even this like giant hole is a circle that goes under.
Yeah, because they're not all obvious. Some of them are not as. This one is a good one. It's a good one to find. It's an easy one to find, and it's a great choice because it is the one. But yeah,
Excellent.
So they've got to find the round thing that fulfills the requirement, which is a round thing, and they have to let their instincts as the chosen. We have to be guided by it. So that's guided you very, very well, chosen
Excellent.
one.
I love that.
So let's go to the next step. So
it sounds good. So just quickly, I'll describe for those who are listening on the podcast. So we're at a lovely little alleyway that we're going to walk. I'm going to actually walk us through there. I'm going to walk us through there so that you can kind of see it because it's a lovely little alleyway. But it's the old post office here in Brisbane. Beautiful kind of like sandstone building with these lovely kind of fig trees around it and palm trees. 2 palm trees, as we noted, 2 palm trees, 2 circles.
Good juju. That's
juju.
Probably why you found exactly the right Omicron when there are other circular things around.
Right, because it's like right in the middle of them. That's right, exactly. And if you look at Post Office Square, it's got this beautiful kind of grassy area, and there's a mall that runs underneath it. But there's this very funky artwork on the left-hand building. Which are these 2 kind of pieces of metallic artwork that are stuck to the side of the building, and they actually feature in several adventures here in Brisbane.
Oh, that's interesting. I tried some of the others, but I haven't done one of those yet.
Yeah, so this there's a kind of like a metallic guy who looks like he's peeling himself off the wall. So he turns up in a couple of different ones, and you can kind of see Anzac Square in the distance. That's where the clock tower is, and that's where the main train station is in Brisbane. So that's where we kind of are in space. So let's see if we can make our way down Post Office Lane. Oh yes, we can. Let's go. Whee! So lots of lovely. It's comes with a legit post office. It's not just called Post Office Lane. It's got some nice little signed walkways and whatnot through here, and little kind of very Venetian-like rooms that go over
the connective room, connective tower room.
Yeah. I wonder if it lets us go all the way through. Yes, it does. Let's go. Whee! And then we end out on the other side of the lane facing St. Stephen's Cathedral, which we actually got to visit during Kim Wilkins' adventure. Yeah, so we followed 2 heroes here who were battling a water monster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All right. So we have chosen the longer
and stronger Omicron. Yeah.
Right here in the beautiful stained glass window. I wonder if we can get right in front of it. Almost.
Yep. Perfect.
Gorgeous.
And again, well spotted.
All right. Oh no. Okay. Because we've also put down what accents we have here. I cannot do an American accent. I'm sorry.
I'll have an attempt. It's quite long. I'll read fast. He'll be a very quick American.
Let's do it.
Okay, some wrong thoroughly here. Sure. St. Stephen's Church. Cathedral? No, I meant St. Stephen's Church. Must be close by. Facing Charlotte Street. Get to front entrance. Run. Phew. I'm going to drop that accent. That's just too difficult. I'm sure I did it.
We ran to Charlotte Street for the church.
Yes. So we're at the church, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there were 2 St. Stephen's, and so one is the right one and one is the wrong one.
Beautiful.
Okay. Phew, that was cool. The ability to think fast and act quick is a bonus to in the chosen one business. You have to imagine this in an American accent. I think I channeled it last time. Getting to your chosen nexus fast means you have more time to find your Omicron, because they form as the nexus forms as soon as you decide on the location. But this quest is not all brawn and speed like some B-grade action movie. Well, you have to admit a little more thought back there at Nexus 1, and you might have realised there were 2 St. Stephen's back to back. You were lucky this time, but taking time to ponder might save you from jumping into the fire in the future. Now, the church cathedral muddle, as well as the distance from the last nexus, means this one is almost at the point of instability. So you have to move fast now. If this nexus collapses before you capture the Omicron and choose your next nexus, we're sunk. So I think you've chosen the Omicron correctly, although not that they will know that. They will only know that at the end if they've chosen. So you've chosen an Omicron, and now somewhere on the exterior of the church is a flat circular shape surrounding a pattern or symbols. Have we found that?
I think that.
Yep.
That would be this guy here, wouldn't it?
Yep. And so you have to take a photograph it or with this device or draw it, and that enables me, the speaker, to access it. Yes, there are a lot of crosses on the steeples, but it's the circular shapes you want. I know there's more than one, but you've got to use your chosen one instincts to select the one that calls to you. Yes, the circular shape is an Omicron. The cross is just a cross. You'll need to minimize the application and open the camera program maybe, or draw if you have that functionality as a human being. Yes, I'm tense because you are the last chosen one, which means that if you are not the chosen one, your race is doomed, and not just your race. No, I'm not keeping you in the dark out of perversity. There's only so much time in each nexus, and there's an order in which I can offer the information I have. Of course you have an enemy. What sort of self-respecting quest would this be if you didn't? But at this moment, it's neither focused nor organised. However, in your presence, in any nexus, we'll draw them. Yes, I said them, but let's not dwell on that. The best thing you can do right now is get moving. Yes, gathering Omicrons is the point of the quest. Each of them echoes the form of an ancient Omicron, and each shape contains a little of the original's power. You can recognise them by their shape, and there'll always be circles containing shapes or patterns. The Omicron need not be small. It can be a garden bed, a construction, something huge, something not near. There's one in every nexus, and you have to trust your instincts. Yes, I know I'm supposed to be your guide, but I can only guide you to the nexuses. I'll skip the accent thing, basically explaining it's a default in your device, and it keeps flipping through other accents connected to previous speakers. And you read some now.
Okay.
Go from who am I?
I have a translation capacity that mimics not only language but accent. Just not today.
Yeah, jump straight to who am I?
Who am I? Well, let me define myself by my abilities. But keep looking for the Omicron until about 10 minutes ago when you faithfully decided to buy a stamp. You were on your way to meet a friend you've mostly known as a co-combatant in cyberspace, where you both engage in a somewhat limited but undeniably engaging computer game called The Horde. For it, you constructed a Titan avatar, and your friend, Kumiko, reinvented herself as a warlock called Caliban, with fetching chameleon hair. Your game name is Red because your avatar has a red tattoo in the middle of the forehead. No, I'm not a stalker, cyber or otherwise. I have access to the game and its players because I have brought access to all human technology. That is how I know your history. All those email messages and anonymous posts from your secret Twitter account. Every like and comment. That's how I read the email message Kumiko sent, telling you aliens have landed and she needs to talk to you. Yeah, she's in danger. The whole human race is in danger. You're running out of time. Capture the Omicron now. I suggest you start by focusing around the doors and the windows of this building. Omicrons are connected to openings. Try outside first, then inside if you must. Hurry now, because the nexus is starting to buckle and you do not want to be here when it collapses. Don't ask. Yes, cleverly thought out. A nexus can only form when there is an Omicron, and each Omicron is connected to two others, hence the two choices. I don't know why some Omicrons are weaker and others are stronger, but it's the total of their strength that will matter in the end. You've got it? Cool. The two possible nexus locations from this place are the old commissariat store and the Botanic Gardens. There'll be some danger at the Botanic Gardens because there are more open spaces and you have a larger area to search, but the Omicron is very strong. The old commissariat store is far weaker, but it is closer and there are no enemies near it at this time. Okay.
So now you're gonna, can you show us an image of that?
So so we won't be able to see it until we get there.
Okie doke. So we now have to choose, yeah.
So we now have to choose. So we could continue to follow the further away one, which is stronger, but we messed that up this time. We went to the cathedral rather than the church, and that's kind of put us behind step. Whereas the commissariat, the old commissariat store is closer. So I feel like not only is it further away, it has more enemies, and we've already kind of run up against the clock. So I think that maybe we should go to the closer one. That's my
old commissariat store. Yeah,
I'll call it commissariat store. I think is going to be our better bet. So Nexus 3C, I think, is going to be our best plan for.
So not the pancake place, not the old windmill tower. No. Old commissariat. Yes. Okay. I like this one. You do the English one. I'll do the Russian one.
Beautiful.
Russian. So it is getting dark. Your kind have done a lot of damage to your ecosystem. That may be the reason. Yes, it may be connected to the dimension gate. Yes, it is connected to the affected, but this is neither the time or place to discuss that. Find the Omicron. No, I'm not sure if the Omicron is inside or out. Begin with the outer facade. It will be quicker. Doors and windows first, then scope out the buildings around. Yes, the buildings across the road, including the old government land administration building, which is now a hotel in this nexus. If you find nothing that calls to you, you must go inside and continue your search. Yes, I said affected, not infected. As for how to recognize them, look for confusion, refusal to make eye contact. The affected may also growl and be twitching hands. A tendency to shuffle is also a dead giveaway. Excuse the pun. I'm not being flippant. Don't worry what is affecting them. We don't have enough time. By the way, Kumiko is trying to reach you. Don't be ridiculous. I'm not snooping. I have zero interest in human secrets. I am meshed with your device. Anything moving through it moves through me. I only mentioned the text because you did not react to the alert tone. No, I'm afraid I cannot allow transmission of your suggestion that she join you. You must remain focused on your quest. I do know the meaning of friendship. According to your primitive meaning generator Wikipedia, it is a state of mutual trust and support. Surely Kumiko understands that the need of a quest comes first. In the horde last week, she sacrificed you for her mission. You have the Omicron? Good. For the next location, you must, choose between maybe we should look now, or I'm confused about where I am actually.
So you are at the old commissariat store on William Street next to the Treasury Casino
Hotel.
Hotel.
It's good to see it again.
Yeah. So that's where we are.
So you have to find the Omicron. So let's see, where is the Omicron?
So I, back in the day, went for the very obvious Omicron here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that was kind of what I went for in this area. But you did say, or at least Russian, you said that you could also potentially pull your Omicron from here. This is a very blocky building. I don't think that there are good potential Omicrons in this space.
Turn around so we can see the other direction as well, because you could go across the street as well.
Oh, yes. Okay. So there is the old store just here. Lots of archways, lots of squares. Ooh, this one has some sort of interesting facade above it. There's some nice little kind of like lights here. I quite like those.
So you choose, and you snap.
I'm going to choose a light, actually.
Clever girl. Following your instincts nicely.
There's not a lot of circles here, but that one calls to me a lot more.
Yeah. Okay, so we snap a shot of that, and then it speaks again, and you do the next one. I'll do this
All right.
You have the Omicron good. For the next location, you must choose between the Kurilpa Bridge and Victoria Bridge. However, I must warn you that neither Omicron is at the location. There is no difference except that the Omicron visible from the Kurilpa Bridge is very strong, almost too good to pass up. However, there are affected moving towards it, so you will have to run. The other Omicron is not as strong. However, there is no danger from meeting infected before you get to the nexus on this bridge. If you are unable to harvest an Omicron, there is a slight margin for error built into the quest that allows for missing one Omicron. No, I didn't see the look the men gave you as they emerged. You are telling me they are heading towards the QUT campus near the gardens is not helpful. For me to see them, you must capture their image. From the back is fine. I see they are in suits. This would be a good moment to mention people in suits are far more likely to be affected because their minds are closer to the configuration the minds of the affected will ultimately take. However, those two are communicating. The affected will not communicate using words. They use physical contact with one another. But wait, we will talk more about the metamorphosis of the affected at the next nexus. Oh, did you say the ticket inspector just bit one? That's not good. No time to tell you why. Hide your phone. Don't take any more images. Choose the next nexus and run. Yes, I'm afraid the affected are beginning to overrun the city. Forget about your friends and colleagues. The only way to save them is to complete the quest. Whatever you do, don't let the ticket inspector touch you. No, it doesn't matter if you are seen by affected people, but you must not make physical contact. If you don't want to choose
okay. This relies on me running if I want a stronger Omicron. Which
either way, you have to move fast because it's starting to overrun the city.
That's a good point. Which as we have previously said, I am not a good runner, so I am going to take the realistic approach here and be like, I'm going to have to go to Victoria Bridge, even though it's weaker, because there is no way I can run to Kurilpa Bridge from here.
But what if the affected were after you and you had your baby in your arms? Wouldn't you run?
That's a good point because there are more affected at the yes.
You have to remember you're scared. And if you're scared, like I'm not a runner either, but I also know that if a vampire was chasing me, I'd run like hell.
That's a good point. All right, let's do it. Let's make it. Let's make the run for Kurilpa Bridge instead. Let's do it. Let's go for it.
Kurilpa. Okay, you read. Now let's find Kurilpa Bridge.
Let's go for Kurilpa. You've convinced me. You've convinced me.
Well, I don't know because I was also actually maybe I'm wrong. Actually, maybe you should run.
Too late. We've run. We've run.
Are you sure?
We've made it there.
All right. Okay, we now have to find that. I don't know where it is. I have to find it in the. You read it. I read the last.
So here we are. So we are on Kurilpa Bridge. It is this beautiful bridge that kind of looks like a bunch of like sail masts without the actual sail. And we're looking out across the city. You can kind of see the South Bank on one side with the art gallery and the state library, and then on the other side you have the Santos building and all of the big skyscrapers from downtown. And then you have these kind of lovely kind of shades that are necessary here in Brisbane. So that is where we currently are on Kurilpa Bridge.
Okay, that sounds good. The next one has a Scottish accent. Can you do that?
I do not know. Let's see. There are no lights No, I don't. Oh, God.
I'll
This
do a
is
little
just
bit and then you see if you can take it up. There are
okay.
no lights because the electricity grid in this area has gone down. You must keep your wits about you now, because although there are not too many people on the bridge, there are some, and among them there may be those who are affected by the virus. One of the previous chosen was Scottish. Well, my accents are only an approximation and doubtless distorted by your flawed implement. Now, enough with the feedback for the guide. The virus. Okay, I can tell you a wee bit. It was sent through the rift torn by a Dimension 15 superstorm. Some of that same superstorm passed through the rift and is causing the inclement weather. I don't know why a group of humans are blocking the way ahead. Let me see if I can access their devices. You're right. They're a vigilante gang who believe the city's been overtaken by aliens. No, don't tell them you're the chosen one, you wee git. It's quite likely they'll think you're an alien. Don't stop to gab with them. Pretend to be afraid. Their creed is full of machismo. They'll reject you as inferior to them. It doesn't matter if they think you're a coward or a ninny hammer. You're trying to save the city, and beyond that, your planet and the 11 dimensions within which it floats, like a mote of insignificant and ephemeral dust. No, don't avoid them. Exchange some words with them to reassure them you're not affected. Remember to be watchful for people who appear to be confused and whose hands twitch. There may be affected in the early stages among them. If anyone's reaching the second stage of the metamorphosis, they'll show a tendency to moan or make guttural noises. As I said, the Omicron is not just on the bridge, but visible from the bridge. I know the choice is large, but you must find it immediately. You must get out of this nexus before it collapses, because there are affected at either end of the bridge now. The moment the nexus collapses, they'll flow onto the bridge and you'll be trapped. You must use one of these other humans as a shield or create a diversion that gives you cover. Certainly they ken that the chosen one is within the nexus, but they'll have no way to identify you until they're fully metamorphosed. They'll just try to make contact with as many humans as possible in an attempt to get you by chance. If they catch you, you must get free by whatever means. The first and second stage affected will not be able to infect you, but they can hold you and summon a third stage infected. The stage 3 affected are able to affect others. No, the chosen are not immune. Now choose the next location and you say the possibilities.
All right. Well, first, I've got to find my Omicron. I've got to be like really quick about it. So it's not on the bridge, but like you can see it from the bridge.
Yeah. So, what do
God.
you say?
Oh, God.
Look around, round and round. What's round and round? Round and round. It's not on the bridge, it's from the bridge. Round and round we go. Do we see anything? You can, if you can't see it, you're going to have to leave it. Or you can choose.
I know, the Wheel of Brisbane.
The
Wheel of Brisbane. Yes.
Okay, so you snap that. And now we have to
snap.
And now we've got to choose really fast.
All right. So
the possibilities, you say them.
The possibilities are Goma and the Police Museum. How do I ken where they are? Use your map if you're lost. The difference between nexuses. Okay. The Omicron at Goma is more stable. No, I can't do it. I can't.
You sound great. You do.
The Omicron at Goma, more stable and moderate in strength, but you have to avoid the gang aggressively recruiting soldiers to battle the affected in the area. You can avoid them if you move quickly and carefully. There are a group of affected near the police museum, and the moment you choose it, they'll be drawn towards it. But there are people in the museum that might be persuaded to help you. Ooh, they feel the end of the world is nigh, so you might be able to convince them that you're the solution. You can tell them that if you complete your quest, they'll be healed. But if you fail, the entire human race will be affected and effectively doomed. That might encourage them to sacrifice themselves. No, I'm not ruthless. I'm pragmatic. And you better hope that they are too. If you choose that location, nope. Nope. Now this nexus is about to collapse. Create your distraction and choose. There was some inspired hysterics there. I'm impressed. I think it was the added wail that it's over. It had tentacles. That was what really gave them the nudge they needed to storm towards the affected at the nexus boundary. No, I never doubted your intelligence for a moment, though I would follow at a more measured pace. I'm quite certain the leader just pulled a gun from his jacket. Okay.
So where do we go next? To the
So
police
we
museum?
go to Goma. So the nexus is moderate and stable, but that's where the gang is.
Recruiting soldiers, but you can
Soldiers.
probably creep past them.
Yeah,
And follow
that's
the
true.
pathway to the statue of the elephant standing on its head, or to the police museum. The nexus is strong, but there are people, and there are people that might be persuaded to help, but there's a horde that this will be attracted. And if that's your chosen path, it tells you the way. So,
Okay. I think I'm going to go to Goma because I think that I did pretty well distracting those people and sending them out. So I think that I can
the screaming and the wailing, obviously you did that very, very well.
Right. I think that I'm really great at being dramatic. So I think that I could probably either be extra dramatic or sneak past them. So I think that I can make it to Goma.
Very appropriate to me.
Yeah. So this is so those listening on the podcast, Goma is next to the State Library on the south side of the river. And so we are going to attempt to see if we can get close to this beautiful statue of
the elephant on its head.
On his head.
Okay. So while you find that, have you found? While you look for that, I will read.
Okay.
Or shall I wait till you find it?
No. You go for it.
I'll read while you search. Okey-doke. Okay. Yeah. Oh, God, it's a Scottish accent. There are a lot of affected here. I hadn't sensed any on the ground, but I had not thought there would be so many stage 3. I know they're stage 3 because they're winged. There's an Omicron here. It's large and strong. Duck the diving affected and try duck the affected and try near the Aboriginal meeting pit. Use your Google application to locate it along the side of the library. Move slowly, don't run. Emulate their stumbling, confused movements, but do not allow any of them to make physical contact. I know I told you I'd help you more, but this is not the best place for that. I know I told you I'd tell you more, but this is not the best place for that. Very well, if it will help you to remain calm, but keep moving and keep alert. Normally, a rip in the fabric between dimensions heals spontaneously, but the hive jammed it open by creating a gate in the gap. Once the opening was stabilized, the hive spawned a virus and sent it through on a storm wind to prepare human minds as a collective horde that would serve as a host to enable its transformation. As a creature of the 15th dimension, it needs vessels attuned to this dimension in order to comprehend and alter it. I am using the word horde as a collective term because in the game you play with Kumiko, the enemy avatar's minds are linked by the symbiotic virus that now inhabits their brains. That's why if one makes physical contact with you, they'll all know where you are. Through all levels, though all levels know you as unaffected, because you are a chosen one. No, they won't eat your brain. That'll be gratuitous and unnecessary violence. The second stage will bite you. That's enough to transmit the virus. If you happen to be one of those who are immune, they'll kill you. Okay? Oh, good, you've found the Omicron here. Quickly, hide. I don't know why you're surprised. I did warn you there were a gang of humans aggressively recruiting soldiers. Yes, it's terrible they're attacking that lassie. I believe they think her infected. It's clear they've not quite sorted it out. No, it's not your quest to tell them. I know her screams are distressing, but you can't help her. You can only help your world by completing your quest. Quickly, while they're distracted, get an image of the Omicron. Okay, and you're going to read
All right. So there are a couple of little circle things, like there's some storm drains and stuff, but I think that our ultimate circle here is the circle that the trunk makes with the elephant, right? Yep. So this statue has not been put here in the wrong way. This is how this statue has always been. Nobody tipped it over. It wasn't like they were cow tipping, the statue tipping, right? So this little elephant has always been on his head in this location. I think there's even like a little mouse somewhere down here as well. But like he has a trunk, so he's got his head on the ground, his tusks kind of parallel, and he's got his trunk that kind of curves around to his body. So I reckon that's my Omicron. It's a good, moderate, strong Omicron.
Yep. And it's one of my most favorite places in Brisbane. I often sit there and have a little picnic.
Beautiful, because it's all on a kind of a grassy hill out the back of Goma, which is
so you get to go to Goma, and then you get to sit outside and have something to eat and drink and watch the world.
Yeah, and there's beautiful Brisbane River, lovely scenery. There's, gum trees, there's jacarandas, there's beautiful figs. So it's just...
We have to imagine all this in very strange darkness, like an eclipse kind of darkness, and walking around are groups of people growling and twitching. And then there are other people, and they bite you if they catch you. And then there are winged affected flying that once they get you, you're doomed. So yes, it's beautiful, but it's also very dangerous.
Yes. Okay. So our next two locations are the QPAC Green Space. So QPAC is kind of across the way where the theatre is, or the ABC building. So QPAC is closer. It's on the other side of the State Library. But that, and the Friends of the Woman being attacked are there, so they could help you, but the Omicron's weaker. And then the ABC building, the Omicron is not in the building, but close by and very strong. So I think that because I know Brisbane quite well, I've been to both the QPAC building and to where ABC building is in the South Bank area. Now, the beautiful Omicron that I saw from the Kurilpa Bridge was the Wheel of Brisbane. And the Wheel of Brisbane is very close to the ABC building. I could feel its strength from the bridge. So I think I'm 100% going towards that strong Omicron. I think that's my mission right there. It's further, it's dangerous, but I think that we've proven that holding our little baby in our hands that we are.
Okay. So you get to the ABC building. Yes, the Wheel of Brisbane is Omicron. My voice is getting weaker. Oh, I'm sorry. The hive has begun to dismantle me. Yes, I am the Omicron. I was. So that was the wrong choice. Game over.
Oh, no.
What you reach at this point is, I'm Isobelle Carmody. Many thanks for playing my story, The Omicron. Okay, so you didn't save the world. That's a shame. But the great thing about playing this game and all the games on this story app, you can have another chance to save the world. Why not try just one more time? I would love to see the Omicrons you've collected around the city. Please post your album of Omicrons on the Story City Facebook page with the hashtag #TheOmicron.
Oh my God, I can't believe I died when I was so close to the big Omicron.
Yeah, I know. And I would have chosen the same thing because I like that space, but it's dangerous too.
Oh, look, see, there's the affected right there coming after me into the Omicron area. Damn it.
Yeah, but it was a very important Omicron. So yeah, if I was writing a book, I might not, I am not the kind of writer who ends up killing everybody. So if I was in a book, you would have come to the most dangerous place, but I would have found a way to save you.
See, this is why I love your novels, right? But I remember pushing you when we did this adventure because I was like, no, you can let people die. In fact, I encourage you to let people die, Isobelle.
It was hard. I mean, for me, the really hard thing about writing this was because, and I can see going through it myself for the first time ever, that it is actually that I've left out some details that you would have got in other choices. Mm-hmm. I guess that's part of the game too. But
that's the point.
And as a writer, I know what the story. I'm doing all that working out before it goes on the page, and on the page is the story doing what I want it to do and taking people through an emotional arc I've curated. Whereas you sort of have to let them do it. And when you pressed me to have some death at the end there. I did. I think it's probably poetic justice that you then get to one of those ends. But yeah, I mean, because as a writer, I know I would never do that. I know I would take you to the most dangerous place, but I would find a way, to negotiate that. I mean, you know it yourself as a writer. You write your characters into these dreadful spaces and corners, and they're with glee and cleverness, and then you think, no, but I've got to get out, and then you have to figure it out. And sometimes you're walking around, what can I do? Because you can't go back and say, well, I won't send them there after all. You have to figure it out. Bad fiction is when they don't, when a door suddenly appears, or, Duce Maxima.
Well, it depends. If you are a literary author, bad endings are like your bread and butter, right?
But it isn't. That's not the point, though. In literary books, the point is not the story. The point is the writing or the character development, or it's not the story. Whereas I'm very story driven. I think you are too, Emily, story driven. And for me, the shape of the story is the point to some extent. And you go through all those arcs and ups and downs and the moments, and you take your reader with you, but inside the vessel of the character, rather than letting them choose. And I have to say, I'm older, and Choose Your Own Adventures came up at some point, and I was not into them because I just felt, what I wanted to do as a writer was something very different. It's a game. It's actually a game when you create that Choose Your Own Adventure stuff. So in the end, I wasn't a gamer.
It's interesting because what you kind of described there, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Stranger Than Fiction.
No.
So it's a Will Ferrell movie, and so it's
write it down because I will have a look at it. What was it again, Emily?
Stranger Than Fiction, it's called.
Yep.
And so, Will Ferrell, Emma Thompson, Maggie Gyllenhaal. And so the premise is that Emma Thompson is a literary writer, and she kills off all of her main characters at the end of these books. But the film follows the main character who can hear her narrating his life. And he's like, what is going on? Am I going insane? Like, what is going on?
That's fantastic.
And so, like, when she's setting it up, she's like, too bad he doesn't realize that in a week he's going to die. And he's like, what? Like, what? and so the story kind of goes through that. Anyone who has spoilers at the end, the conversation is because the character gets to meet the author and they have a discussion. So the question is, does the author continue to do the character development that they normally do where they kill the person off? Or now that they've met and humanized the character, do they do as you say, put them through hell, but then have them come out the other end? So it's a very
meta. I love this kind of thing.
Yeah. So perfect illustration of what you're talking about, I think. For those of you who are listening to the podcast, the Wheel of Brisbane is this big, massive white Ferris wheel that runs very slowly and kind of overlooks Brisbane. So look, and honestly, these pods would be great for transmitting infections because you're in tight enclosed quarters with other people. I should have known. Tight enclosed quarters with other people. The pandemic has taught me not to do that, and should have known that I would get infected as a result of that.
But if you want to know like where the story goes, then you would have to go back and go through again and make a different choice at this point. Or your other choices were obviously good, but you might want to go through and make different choices. But when you get to this, if you do, then you'd decide to go somewhere else, and then you would learn how and why the Omicron was there and how it can be fixed and how the Omicrons you've connected and collected work. So it's designed so that you each step have a little bit more information, but it's incomplete, in a story it is too.
It is, yeah. Which, I love the fact that if you go back and play it, you'll end up with completely different information and an ending. And I want to give a shout out to Gabrielle Cunnett. He was on a previous version of Adventure Hour, and this is his beautiful illustration for this.
Yeah, look, it's a gorgeous illustration. I love the visuals of all of them, the ones that were, produced at the same time as we were doing them.
Oh, yes. So beautiful. Okay. Well, we died, guys. I'm sorry. This is not an Isobelle Carmody ending.
But actually, it's great. Emily, it's great because it's not a spoiler. They still don't know the end of the story. So if they like it, They also know not to go, where to choose not to go. So you get a second chance. There's a couple of other death options in there, but to the second chance.
Yeah, I feel like going to the radio station would be a mistake. I don't know, like that felt like a trap to me, and I don't know why.
Well, it's certainly a trap, just not for us. Someone else it's a trap for.
So there you go, guys. If you were to download the app, which you can do at about.storycity.app, you can download the Story City app. You can turn on spoiler mode if you're not in Brisbane, and you can kind of tap through your choices, make different choices to me, and see the ending that Isobelle actually intended. Right, so you try and comb. You've got to try and comb through to see if you can find the actual path that Isobelle wanted you to be on, because she's rooting for you. She's rooting for you to be the chosen one.
I am their guide, after all, like any writer, and I am not that kind of writer. So I really do want to get all the way through.
I love that so much. And like that kind of brings me to what I wanted to have a chat with you about today. I wanted to have a chat about two things, right? One was to find out, what have you been up to? Like, if you can say, what are you working on at the moment? But then also I want to have a chat to you about an exhibit that you did recently. But first, let's have a chat about what you have been up to. What are you working on right now?
Right this very second, I'm trying to finish. I'm on a mountain, up on Mount Hotham in a lodge with one other writer, although some more are arriving today, in retreat, writing as hard as I can. And I'm trying to finish Comes the Night, which is a novel set in the future of Canberra, which I've been working on for a couple of years, in between COVID and finishing a PhD and doing research and preparing that installation we're about to talk about. So it's always hard to find, well, you know it as well, and anyone out there who writes, they know it. It's hard to find not just time and space, but the deep time experience. And I always find it on the mountain. I want to believe I'm going to finish it by the end of next week. The chances are slim. And I want to believe I'm going to finish it when the week after that, and the chances are slim. So I think it's probably got another month, and I go back to the world, and then the world starts to get in the way. So at the moment, I'm trying to get as much done as I can. This is the only social event that has happened and will happen for the next couple of weeks.
Very fair. Is that part of the creative work you were doing as part of your PhD, or that was separate from it?
No, they like you to, when not for my PhD, I wrote another book for that. This is connected to my research, which was called, I produced, I did a research fellowship for 18 months, and I designed some workshops for kids in regional towns around trying to imagine the future of their town as through science fiction. And they like you to be working on something creative as well. So I chose to work on Comes the Night during this, because it's set in the future of Canberra. So in many ways, what I was getting the kids to do, I was very much channeling my own work. I talked about it with them. I sat and worked while they were working. That was lovely. Actually, I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed their creativity. It's always nice to be around working writers of any age. But it took away a lot of time. You didn't have much time, and to enter that deep time experience, it was really hard in that period. And then I'd got a grant to do an installation connected to another book, which was a memoir about the year I stood with my protest sign. All the things.
Can you tell us why you were standing with a protest sign?
Funny, because the installation is part of sort of investigating, not why the book is about why I did it, and the installation gives people the option to enter into that space of protest and see what it feels like, and see what it is that they think is beyond the pale, and what they think is good or reasonable, and why protest actually is important, and why we have to protect it as a mode. Because if you have no power, it's one of the ways we speak truth to power. If people are not in power, are not listening, how do you make them listen? Protest is what getting in the way of business is one of them. But of course, people don't want people to get in their way. So you've got to balance, your interference with their day with the level of importance, of what you're doing. And so, the installation was partly examining the mode of mode of protest. What is it for? And my protest was just the stepping off point from it. The book I'm writing around it, or am in the process, is around just what it is to be a creative writer in that moment, doing that over and over again every night, because we process the world as writers. And I was writing all day and protesting at night every single day for a year. And so that was all being, there's an interface between, living in the world and creating. You are constantly going backwards and forwards between the world and your reality in the world and your imaginary reality in the thing that you're creating, and they interact. Art is life and life is art, and so in a way that those three things are all processing the same thing.
You have a lot of social issues that come into all of your books that we
Yeah,
read, right?
absolutely.
And you can see it in every book that you have written.
It's interesting because when I was protesting, and I was protesting in offshore processing, and how cruel it was to use performative cruelty as a way of stopping people from coming, and just
I should say to those who aren't in with Australian politics, so the way that Australia handles their immigration, where immigration comes from war-torn countries and they come on boats, is that generally what they do is they turn the boats around before they reach Australian waters, and they push them into various island detention centres, which are in the kind of like the Asian, Indonesian region, so that they can say that they never arrived in Australia.
And process them and send them elsewhere,
and process them and send them elsewhere. Sometimes they used to be in detention centres in various places in the very outback of Australia, and then they started to do offshore detention centres, and people would just be in limbo for years with no true path.
It's a political trick to prevent Australia having to fulfil the obligations of the various treaties they've signed, saying that they will protect people who are genuine refugees. And it's awful, because in those islands, they don't want them. They're turned into criminals. They're put in prison. So of course, they're put behind wires. So the locals feel they're prisoners. It's like colonialism. It's imposed on these people, and a lot of dirty money changes hand. It costs an unthinkable amount of money that could be used to help those people settle. They're valuable human beings they're not, impoverished people. There's often they're doctors and things escaping from countries that, because they're gay or something, they can't live there. So, for me, but the reasoning behind it all, I just felt so helpless at things being done that I felt to be morally wrong. And that for me, standing was a way of, I didn't realize it, but it stopped me feeling helpless. It stopped me feeling powerless. And in the end, it didn't matter that nothing changed based on anything I did. Nothing changed. I was changed profoundly. And people who didn't think about these things started to think about them. Some of them began to protest too, so in some small way. But you're right, it's how human beings treat other human beings, how power imbalance affects the powerless, has always been something I've thought about since I wrote Ober Newton at 14. I was a kid. Kids have no power. Their parents have power. Adults have power. And yet they see things that are wrong. They are themselves treated badly or cruelly sometimes, and they don't have power. And so I guess it's always been an interest of mine, that imbalance of power and the desire to be able to help or do something, for one person to be able to make a difference. And I guess, the whole Omicron thing is also playing around with the idea that one person might be able to. And there are moments in the world, where that whole notion of the butterfly's wing, I'm fluttering in, somewhere on the other side of the world, and it changes something. We're so worried about one little action changing the world. Well, but that's so then. One little action can change the world. It doesn't have to be for the worse. If we have that power, then can't we use it to do something right? Of course, the play of traveling back in time says, how do you know the result of the thing that you do? I would say you don't. You can only do what's right now and in the moment. You can't say, but if I do this, that might happen. You have to do the best thing you can with all the knowledge you have in the moment. And I think in books, people are always partly trying to figure out what that is. what is the best thing I can do? And is the best thing for me the best thing for the person sitting next to me, or for my child, or for my mother and the old people in that old people's home? So part of my books is negotiating, a moral question often.
Yeah. And I remember that part of your protest, you ended up having to go to court, didn't you? Because they tried to fine you because of where you were protesting.
Yeah, they did fine me.
Because it was considered private space, not public space.
Well, I was charged with advertising, even though I was one person alone, standing, protesting, and never speaking unless someone spoke to me, never getting in the way of anything. I was just there. And they tried to let me off on the morning of the court case, and I refused because I wanted my day in court. And the magistrate said, "You're a fine human being, Ms. Carmody. I hope no one in this court would disagree with anything you've written on any of your protest banners. However, art is not activism." And when it was interesting because the installation it happened in Canberra over a week. And part of the installation is that I would speak for a little bit of it. And I ended my first speech on that note, and the entire audience strewn around the room looking at all the 500 images that I had taken throughout my protest gasped when I said that the magistrate said art is not activism. Because it is activism. And the reason that question came up was because my solicitor, who was doing it for free, my barrister, said, "Look, we can fight this on a constitutional point, that you have the right to stand in public space with a sign, and it's not advertising. And we can fight it, but it would cost, we would then have to have a Queen's Counsel, and that would cost $8,000 a day." And he said, "Your followers will pull that together for you." And I said, first, I'm not sure they will or are able to, because the people who donate money are always people who have very little. People who have a lot rarely donate unless it's tax deductible. And I wouldn't be tax deductible. So firstly, I doubted it. Secondly, even if they would, I couldn't justify that for being able to stand in Queen Street Mall protesting when I didn't think anything I was doing was changing anything. And I said, "No, we can't do that. What else can we fight this on?" And he said, "We can fight it by saying you're an artist and you are pursuing your art in living in the world and exploring ideas and questions." And of course, I was doing that. I'd realized by that, months and months in, that's exactly what I was doing. I was writing posts every night. So we tried to fight it on that level. And in the end, the magistrate found that I was advertising and that art is not activism. She said it in her speech. And when I made that point, I made this comment, I pointed to those images in the 500 images around this big gallery. I said, "Over there, you will see I lost my case." And there was a newspaper story posted on the wall there where I lost the case. And I said, and I lost the case because the magistrate said, art is not activism. And everyone in the room gasped, and all this audience around the room. And I thought, what a great spot. It's where I plan to end the book. It's where the book begins, actually, not ends. It's where the book begins. And it's where I realised that the installation, the emergent installation, which is interactive, where that would end was with me saying that. And then inviting people. I've had someone create signs which are erasable. And I then invited people to go over and write on a sign something they would be prepared to protest for. I had real protesters with their real signs there. And I had a Polaroid camera, and I took photos of every person who wrote a sign. Some wrote, "I am very uncomfortable doing this." And all of those are valid, and I have them all, and they're part of the installation, which I hope. And I've just applied for funding, and I'm hoping I get it. I just got a note saying the funding I've applied for is delayed because so many people are applying for funding, and that is delayed till the beginning of June. But that's what I'm hoping for money to be able to fly to. It's only actually quite small. I can fit the signage. The guy who made it for me made it so it would fit into a suitcase, and I can fit everything I need in a suitcase. And I have one archival box with all of the images that I posted up. I did it all myself. I posted the images. I had help. I had friends from time to time come and help me paste up and then, bump out and bump in. And I have, a microphone. I had a film. My daughter made me a film which is screened against the wall, where when people come into the gallery, I'm standing with my sign. And so it's like I'm standing in the street with my sign, and people come in and they get these little cupcakes with my image on them and eat them, and then walk around the gallery until the moment a person with a script starts to say, it begins by saying exactly what you said to me. The first line of the script she says is, people are walking and I'm just standing there with my sign sort of near the microphone, and she goes to the microphone and she says, why the hell are you doing this? You must be crazy. And so that's where the emerge, the little performed part goes on. I won't give away anymore, because I'm hoping all you listening, you guys out there, would go to it if it comes. I'm applying for funding to go to Sydney and Melbourne. I will definitely do it in Brisbane before the year is out, and I will definitely do it in Melbourne, funding or not. Once I can find a gallery, I'm in negotiation with a couple of galleries now, and I've had a gallery in Bendigo and a gallery in Ballarat. And so I'm interested in taking it to regional galleries, but it will be, I have to get there. I have to stay somewhere. I have to, there'll be a certain amount of Officeworks paper stuff that I have to get, because I've asked people to write stuff, which they did very generously during those 2 days. It's such a valuable installation in gathering information about what Australians think about protest. What is too much, what's too little, what they would stand up for, what they have done in their lives. It's so valuable, what I'm collecting. And so there we are. I hope I'm taking it around Australia next year.
I love that. And I would really hope that, and you are always welcome to use Story City to put that protest digitally in the spaces that you stood, right? So you may not be able to stand there physically every day anymore, but you can use digital, the Story City app to put that video there, to put that photograph there, to ask people that question and invite them to join you in saying what they would stand for. And I really hope that people use Story City to do that, right? To do that activism and to do that protest, and to record the protests that they're doing and make sure that they live on there, because they may be able to find someone who's standing there in physical space, but they can't stop all forms of protest. And I really hope that people like yourself.
Well, I mean, the thing about, of course we have the internet, but, again, that physical act of standing in a place, physically going through Story City, is a very different experience than jumping through it as a story. It's a much more embodied experience, and that embodied experience, which you can have in a minimal way in the installation, you can have also by playing the story game, a Story City game, rather than playing it on the app. It's a much richer, obviously richer experience. And it's the same with protest. Yes, you can protest online, and people did, to help me, and they reposted blogs, and it was huge. It went bigger and bigger, and I really needed that. But it began with a physical embodied experience. And the reason for taking the installation around is to go the next level and to take it through the country next year and gather all the information I can. And I'm filming people, I've got a camera set up and I've interviewed people. And at the end of that, I will create a little documentary, which I then would try to screen around the country. Again, so you lift that experience, then it's not wasted, because it's ephemeral. Installations are ephemeral. And even someone looking at it on a screen, it still will not be what it was to go there and take part in that experience. But it's something, isn't it? So
I think that you keep talking about how you are an author and a book writer, but I constantly see you do these kind of things where you are taking the story out and outside of that written word and bringing it to those embodied experiences. And I love that about what you're doing,
Emily, because I prefer sitting down and writing and sitting down and reading to just about every other form of story. And yet you're right. I am constantly breaking those boundaries and stepping out to do other things. And at this point in my life, you make me realize with that comment that it is, there is something important. I also live in the world. And I spend so much time in stories in my head, writing them or reading them, and and producing things that I just stay in my head for. That, looking out the window and walking out there in the world, you have to live in the world as well as online and on screen. And this app is fantastic because it allows you to do both. And I think the installation does the same thing too. I think finding ways to use both is really clever and really important also.
100%. Well, Isobelle, I can't thank you enough for joining us here on Adventure Hour and talking about your projects past and current, and giving us amazing Scottish accents and Russian accents when I am very clearly unable to do it. If we'd gotten to one with a British accent, I probably would have been okay. But
yeah, I was going to give you the British accent ones, the English ones, but we didn't get there.
So how can people find out more about you?
Well, I have a blog called Slipstream, where I haven't blogged on it for a long time, but I put some essays there that I really like and are very, very relevant. Whenever I'm asked to read something, I often read one of those. So they're long photo essays so Slipstream and my name, the word Slipstream and my name will get you there. And I have a website, which I'm not terribly active in updating, but that has a lot of information and stuff that I think is, if you want to know more about me, it's certainly there. And otherwise, I'm on Twitter as Firecats, and I'm on Facebook. I have my name on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram too. I'm actually just inspired by you playing with a little bit of Instagram. I realized you could put together someone's video of a really great cat who refuses to allow themselves to be harnessed. You know how when you put harness on a cat, they're not going to do it. They just fall over and pretend to be dead. And it was so funny. And I realized, I thought, oh, it's offering me the option to film it and how does that work? So I did it and I posted it. And 1,800, views later, I thought, what? And my friend last night, my writer friend last night made this hilarious
reaction videos from Isobelle. I love it. Please.
She did this really funny, my friend here just said this really funny thing when I told her this. She said, yeah, you post something wise and intellectual and 3 people like it, and you photograph yourself watching a cat refusing to walk and you get 1,800 views. So funny. So I'm playing around. Another thing I just played with recently that got a huge amount of likes too was I have a piece of music I've heard a few times that I really, really love. And it was playing. And again, I realized, I thought it offered me the option of kind of like making a video with that music over it. So I thought, oh, well, I'll do it then. And then I'd seen a couple of writers typing and I thought, I wonder what I look like when I write. So I just filmed myself and I put that on without any editing. And my friend here said, she laughed her head off. She said, I've seen you do that with those faces and that kind of all those times. She said, I've seen you on the other side of a table doing that. So that was pretty funny. Why anyone would care, I don't know. And yet, when I've seen them, I thought, oh, that's so-and-so writing. What do they look like when they're writing?
That's a brief human interest, right?
Yeah.
It comes back out as a character later on.
Yeah. So I guess, these things you can play with them. And if I'm in a moment of boredom, I might play with something like that. But I don't see myself regularly doing it. But I'm amused and startled by, how many likes you can get for some random thing like this.
Everyone should follow Isobelle on Instagram. It sounds like she's experimenting and it's going to be a great time.
Maybe the most other thing, I have a Patreon site, and for something like $14 a month, which is the lowest level, and that's what I advise you to join at. The site has all these other possibilities, and there are things connected to them, but really joining at the lowest level gets you one workshop a month, where if you were joining it through, I've just been asked to do a writer's workshop for a writer's centre, and for people doing that month by month writer's workshop, it'll cost them $1,300. It costs you $14 to do it a month online with me. So there's that.
Isobelle on Patreon.
Yeah,
I personally have had many a workshop with Isobelle, and she is worth it. I can
Oh,
tell.
well, I'm not sure, but I post a lot on there, and I talk about the things I'm doing in a lot more detail and depth, and I have a more intimate connection with people there. And these days, that's where I spend most of my time, because the people on it are, spending these little amounts of money, but they are doing it. And that's really useful to me and helpful. And so I feel like it's incumbent upon me to really connect through that. And I really enjoy it. And I have to tell you, 3 of the people coming up for the retreat are Patreon people who are, of course, paying a much reduced price because they are Patreon followers. So at first I was really embarrassed having a Patreon site and getting support, but I actually feel like it's an exchange now, and I enjoy it, So hopefully they can do, but they can cancel it if they don't.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I don't know if you've ever read The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer, but
I have.
frames it beautifully.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. She gives and offers and asks a great deal more than I would ask, but I love reading about what she's doing. I think her vulnerability is very brave. And to some extent, that book about standing is all about the power of vulnerability. What happens when you don't protect yourself, when you put yourself in a public space and you risk yourself, your reputation, your body, how there's something in that that's so strong that you cannot explain. You can only experience. So
yeah, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Isobelle. Thank you so much, adventurers, for joining us as well. As we said, you can download the app, go through spoiler mode, make different choices to myself, and see Isobelle's ultimate grand ending if you wish. But otherwise, I really highly recommend that you check out any of her work if you haven't already. Although I'm assuming anyone who is here has had some delightful times reading your books. We do run Adventure Hour every week. We will be running our next Adventure Hour next Thursday, where we will be diving into trying to get our grandparents together as we time travel back in time to 1950s Gold Coast. So
that, Emily?
That is Tim Baker, the wonderful Tim Baker, who is a writer of a lot of surf history. So he knows a lot about the history of Coolangatta and the Gold Coast in those kind of surfing histories. And he's written a wonderful memoir about his journey in going through his healing journey with cancer as a man who ended up with stage 4 cancer and is still alive and still kicking, and has been covered by The Australian magazine, and is currently in Margaret River doing, festivals and book festivals. So we will be getting to do his adventure next week. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Greatly appreciate all of you. And until next week, have a lovely adventure.